Tonight, Iran intensifies its attacks on cargo ships in the Strait of Hormuz, hitting at least 2 more tankers. And the government relaxes fuel quality standards to get more petrol flowing into the Australian market. Good evening, I'm Jennett with you from Ngunnawal country and acknowledging others with connection to the lands of the ACT. This is ABC News. Also tonight, Queanbeyan's main street closed to traffic for the next 6 months for some overdue upgrades. Stolen babies and fake documents, Australia launches an inquiry into a Korean adoption program. And 5 iconic Australian-made pinball machines added to the National Film and Sound Archive. "32 countries have agreed to release 400 million barrels of oil to address fears over global supply as the US and Israel's war with Iran escalates. Dramatic scenes have unfolded in the Strait of Hormuz, through which about 1/5 of the world's oil passes, as Iran attacks oil tankers and cargo vessels.
Pouring fuel on the flames of war. Oman oil storage facilities hit by drones. While explosive-laden Iranian boats target oil tankers strangling the Strait of Hormuz, Iraq evacuating dozens of crew members from burning vessels.
All members here.
These Thai crew capturing the moment they escaped an Iranian attack. As the war stems the flow of oil tankers through the Strait, 32 countries, members of the International Energy Agency, are launching the largest ever release of emergency stocks, 400 million barrels of oil.
But, to be clear, the most important thing for a return to stable flows of oil and gas is the resumption of transit through the Strait of Hormuz.
The regime remains adamant it won't allow a single drop through.
Any vessel whose ship or oil cargo belongs to the United States, the Zionist regime or their hostile partners will be considered a legitimate target.
The US President Donald Trump providing his assurance.
And my administration, as you know better than anybody, is also working to keep the oil flowing. It's flowing all over.
As US and Israel's bombardment of Iran continues, the country's exiled crown prince has renewed calls for the regime's military to defect.
This is your last chance to break from the oppressive forces and join your people.
While the Islamic Republic issued a stern warning.
If someone comes to the streets at the request of the enemy, we do not see them as protesters. We see them as enemies. All our children are ready to fire.
The Iranian government has also released evidence it says proves the US killed more than 160 civilians, mostly children, in a strike on a girls' school. This vision purportedly showing debris from a US missile, adding to preliminary findings by US authorities.
A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it.
Iran is demonstrating it can still fight back, firing at Israel and targets across the Middle East. The Israeli government says its operation with the US will continue for as long as it takes to crush the Iranian regime. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Australia's still finalising its response to the International Energy Agency's call. But today, the federal government took action to boost domestic fuel supplies. The Energy Minister has temporarily relaxed environmental standards to alleviate shortages, especially in regional areas. Here's National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman.
Rising prices fueling panic. Unleaded now firmly over $2 a litre. diesel a record high.
The fact that Bunnings ran out of jerry cans is enough evidence that we've gone down the wrong path here.
Panic buying and stockpiling disrupting the supply chain.
We're seeing a doubling of demand for fuel since the bombing of Iran, and that is what has caused real unacceptable supply chain pressure.
The government insists supply is not the issue, with 36 days worth of petrol, 32 days of diesel and 29 days of jet fuel in reserve. But Australia is exposed. With only 2 refineries on shore, 90% of its fuel is imported.
Can the Prime Minister guarantee that Australia will not run out of fuel?
Can you guarantee Australia will not run out of fuel?
Resume your seat.
Under pressure, the government's taken action, temporarily boosting supplies by relaxing the fuel standards designed to reduce pollutants and emissions.
This will see 100 million litres of fuel extra flow in Australia a month over that time.
Roughly 2 days' worth. Brisbane's Ampol refinery to redirect the dirtier fuel normally exported into the domestic market. Regional Australia the priority.
Practical action to help farmers, to help regional Australians through this immediate crisis.
We need a way too to make sure that, if needed, restrictions could be applied in our big metropolitan areas so that food production isn't hindered.
A fortnight into this war, the government is grappling with the enormous economic aftershocks. Treasury analysis seen by the ABC suggests if oil prices remain at current levels, inflation is set to surge even higher above the Reserve Bank's band, putting more pressure on the board to lift interest rates. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
Well, there's no immediate fix for surging fuel prices, despite those pledges from governments around the world to do what they can to ease price pressures. Here's our chief business correspondent, Ian Verinder.
There was a swift reaction to the International Energy Agency's decision to open the oil floodgates. It bolted past $100 a barrel. Perhaps someone did the maths. 400 million barrels divided by 20 million a day taken out by the war. That's less than 3 weeks' supply. In our case, the situation is even more dire. Our oil production has dropped 90% since 2000. Most is now sent to Singapore, where it's refined and then shipped back at enormous cost. We're supposed to have 3 months of strategic reserves, but that was scaled back to 50 days, with a large portion held in America, which has since been sold. On some estimates, we have just 25 days' worth in the can. The longer the Persian Gulf is shut, the more acute and extended the shortage, and the higher prices will climb. In the US, gasoline has surged 20% in the past fortnight, putting pressure on Donald Trump to swiftly bring this conflict to a close.
Ian Verinder reporting there. Well, in other news, weeks before the Royal Commission into Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion is due to hand down its interim report, former ASIO boss Dennis Richardson has resigned from the inquiry, saying he's surplus to requirements. Here's political reporter Sarah Tomeska.
A highly respected public servant asked to lead a review into the Bondi terror attack, overnight announcing an early exit.
I didn't necessarily see my last job of this kind being more of a highly paid researcher.
His expertise valued at up to $500,000 or $5,000 a day. Dennis Richardson says his role was surplus to requirements.
I think the destination the Royal Commission gets to will be not much different to the destination if I had have remained there or if I had have been doing it alone.
In the aftermath of Bondi, Mr Richardson was handpicked to probe the AFP and ASIO to assess if more could have been done to prevent the murder of 15 people.
He is someone of integrity. He will have enormous power.
But that power was quickly subsumed by the announcement of a royal commission after weeks of political pressure. The coalition says Dennis Richardson must be involved.
This has to be fixed, and it has to be fixed today.
It's now reached a point where I think my value add is pretty limited.
Dennis Richardson is adamant his early departure won't impact the quality of the Royal Commission or its ability to probe the AFP and ASIO, insisting Australians will be fully informed. Commissioner Virginia Bell has thanked him for his contribution and says she's confident the Commission will deliver its interim report on time. Sarah Temevska, ABC News, Canberra.
The Chief Minister has repeated his promise that a new convention centre is in the works, but it won't be operational until the 2030s, and the Aquatic Centre at Commonwealth Park will be built first. Andrew Barr's comments followed his annual State of the Territory address, which included confirmation the first stage of the government's 50-50 funding agreement with the Commonwealth is complete. Mr Barr also confirmed the business case for the convention centre will be released before the 2028 ACT election. Mr Barr says he's so confident a public-private partnership, or PPP, will be secured, there's no plan B.
The option is so attractive that every single one, and there's been a dozen convention centre projects in the country this year, have all attracted a PPP partner.
Queanbeyan's main street has closed to traffic for the next 6 months as work begins to upgrade the road and stormwater infrastructure. Some residents and business owners are anxious about its effect on local trade, but the town's mayor says the upgrades to Monero Street are necessary and well overdue.
The Queanbeyan Council is promising a new-look Monero Street by mid-September.
Literally everything is being replaced, the stormwater under the road, a new road surface.
It will update infrastructure that's older than many of the town's residents.
We know the stormwater underneath the road is nearly 100 years old.
While footpaths on Monero Street will stay open, businesses still expect trade to take a hit.
It'll affect every business that's on the main street.
I think the walk-ins we usually get when the people just can park anywhere and they can just straightway walk to our restaurant. We are expecting it less.
And the concern is felt by residents too.
I can see where a lot of businesses are going to be impacted because I see it on the other side of the border.
The council hopes its stimulus measures will be enough.
So you spend $20 in a local business and go into the draw to win $500 voucher. We'll be doing things like that. We're encouraging people to park at the Collette Street car park, and for those that do and get in there by a certain time in the morning, they'll be getting a coffee voucher.
The Queanbeyan Council says it's confident the upgrades will be finished within 6 months. The work will leave the road and parking spots unchanged, but some businesses the ABC spoke to are hopeful the upgrades will ultimately bring more people to the area.
I think it will entice other people to bring back smaller businesses within the main street because it'll be more inviting. It'll have a newer aesthetic to it.
A little pain now for gain in the future. Ruby Thomas, ABC News, Queanbeyan.
Korean Australian adoptees have welcomed an inquiry into the controversial program that brought them here. The East Social Welfare Society is known to have falsified documents and stolen babies from their birth parents. Now, the federal government will look into possible systemic failures here in Australia.
It's the news thousands of Australian Korean adoptees have been waiting for.
It's plain that there were improprieties at the Korean end. It's now important to also ask whether we followed proper procedures at the Australian end.
Australia is launching its own inquiry following a damning Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Korea.
Children were abducted and portrayed as orphans when they clearly weren't.
Around 200,000 South Koreans were adopted out overseas in the decades following the Korean War. The Australian inquiry will focus on the 3,000 or so who were placed here between the 1960s and 90s.
I experienced a range of sexual assault, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse.
Last month, this New South Wales woman became the first of the Australian group to have their adoption discharged, saying the program lacked proper screening.
I wasn't adopted for the reasons that I had been told, and I've been placed with an adoptive family who I do not believe should have been able to adopt.
I felt I didn't know who I was anymore.
Larissa Dixon was placed with loving parents in Perth, but the 47-year-old and her family feel deceived.
It was upsetting to not know if I, had been child trafficked.
I trusted the system because it was government-backed. You thought you were doing it with the best of good intentions, and then those good intentions weren't honoured.
This inquiry will be carried out by social services with help from the New South Wales Justice Department. The findings will be released at the end of the year. Alex Turner-Cohen, ABC News.
Israel's intense bombardment of Lebanon is fueling a humanitarian crisis that's putting immense strain on the financially crippled country. More than 700,000 Lebanese citizens are now displaced, many forced to camp in tents, leaving charities to pick up the slack.
Lebanon's largest football stadium usually fits 45,000 fans. Now, hundreds of residents are seeking shelter from Israeli strikes underneath the stands.
We were bathing the children when they suddenly issued a warning to evacuate the entire southern suburbs of Beirut. So we quickly put our things in a van and left right away.
This is a crisis that involves all of Lebanon.
The local municipality is trying to provide services to those sleeping at the complex and at 100 other sites across Beirut.
Well, the first thing is to try to reach out to people. We have to understand that these people have escaped very dangerous situations.
I honestly don't know if it'll be a long time or a short time.
The threat is ever present as Israel continues its bombardment of Beirut and beyond. After the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah weighed into the broader regional conflict in solidarity with Iran. Lebanon's social safety net is non-existent, leaving charities to feed, clothe and house the desperate and displaced.
We cannot tell no for anyone.
This kitchen is serving up to 5,000 meals a day, almost double its usual amount.
We feel deep down in our mission we are protected by our God.
And some of those who keep the kitchen going recently fled their own homes in the south.
With my yoga and my faith, we always stay hopeful. Hopefully we will return.
Feeding that dream, the order of the day. Matthew Doran, ABC News.
Australian tech giant Atlassian has announced massive job cuts due to artificial intelligence. 1,600 positions will be axed worldwide, nearly 500 of them here in Australia. The software company says the cuts will help it fund more investment in AI.
When you join as an engineer at Atlassian,
it's been a rocky year for tech stocks, with competition from AI pushing out software companies like Atlassian.
This is a very tough day. Days like these are among the toughest that we have as a company.
By the end of the decade, 99% of jobs could be automated away.
The AI boom is making global headlines.
Amazon announcing its largest job cuts in years.
And it's behind tens of thousands of job losses at some of the world's biggest brands.
Slashing nearly 48,000 workers.
Now Atlassian is cutting 1,600 jobs globally, with 500 coming from its Australian operations.
Nightmare for a whole bunch of teammates, yeah.
Many of them were hoping to work at the company's new global headquarters under construction near Sydney's Central Station. Atlassian says the job cuts will allow it to boost investment in AI, arguing it needs to adapt to stay afloat.
Proving that we can grow profitably over the long term by staying responsive to the world that we have to operate in.
Atlassian's share price has plummeted 66% in the last 12 months, from $227 last March to just over $75 today. Atlassian joins other Australian-founded companies like Canberra, WiseTech and Block in announcing significant job cuts in response to the AI revolution.
Until software companies are able to explain to the market how they're able to leverage AI to generate new value for their shareholders, then they're going to be in for pretty rough times.
And rough times ahead for the humans that lose their jobs to AI. Jessica Kidd, ABC News.
And in other finance news, reports of ships being attacked around the Persian Gulf led to a renewed spike in oil prices and a bruising day for the Australian share market. Here's David Chow.
In the past 24 hours, the Aussie dollar got pretty close to 72 US cents, which is its highest level in 3.5 years, before it went down slightly to 71.2 cents. Its gains in recent days were due to some comments by the Reserve Bank Deputy Governor Andrew Hauser, who said there'll be a very genuine debate at the next RBA meeting. All four of Australia's big banks interpreted that to mean expect a rate hike next Tuesday. And it couldn't have come at a worse time, especially with oil back above $100 US a barrel, which dashes any hope of petrol prices falling back to where they were before Israel and America attacked Iran. This latest spike came after reports of at least 6 ships being attacked near the Strait of Hormuz over the past day. So Donald Trump's pledge to offer Navy protection to oil tankers and the International Oil Agency's decision to release a record amount of oil into the markets have essentially done nothing to calm investors' nerves. So while oil surged 9% today, the price of gold went down to about $5,140 US an ounce. So it's probably no surprise that oil stocks did well today and shares of gold miners did poorly. And overall, it was another bad day for the share market after it fell by a fairly steep 1.4%, as the reality seems to be sinking in that this war could drag on and lead to higher fuel prices, higher inflation and higher interest rates. Overseas, things weren't that much better for markets in the US or Asia. And just finally, the cheerful folks at Commonwealth Bank have warned this war could last months, that markets are currently underestimating the risks, and the oil price could even surge above 150 US a barrel, which would be a new record for all the wrong reasons. And that's finance.
To sport, and members of the men's Iranian soccer team will not play in the FIFA World Cup, co-hosted by the United States later this year. Meanwhile, supporters here say everything will be done to make the 6 members of the women's team who sought asylum in Australia feel at home in their new country.
Firuza Amiri knows what it's like to start a new life in Australia as a refugee.
It would be very hard when you say bye to your home and you know that you're not going to go back ever.
The Iranian-born member of the Afghan women's cricket team fled the country when the Taliban returned to power. She has this advice for the 6 members of the Iranian women's football team who sought asylum in Australia.
Missing home, I always do find a cricket ground, you can find a soccer field. That will be reminding you who you are.
The Iranian women are getting help from the International Footballers Union, and A-League clubs have offered to help.
Finding houses, support them in relation to learning English, etc. So there'll be a whole community around them.
It's an opportunity for them to know that there's a club out here that cares about them and is willing to offer them a safe space.
The members of the team who left Australia are still in Malaysia. Their journey home still up in the air. Now, Iran's men's team has pulled out of this year's FIFA World Cup in the United States. The country's sports minister appeared on TV saying,
"This corrupt government assassinated our leader, so we are not in a situation to participate in the World Cup."
Hours earlier, FIFA President Gianni Infantino met with the US President Donald Trump, later posting, President Trump reiterated that the Iranian team is, of course, welcome to compete in the tournament in the United States. That wishful thinking was quickly washed away. This week's events have well and truly put paid to that thorny old cliche that sport and politics never mix. David Mark, ABC News.
Australia will be without first-choice players Hayley Raso and Steph Catley for Friday's Women's Asian Cup quarter-final against North Korea in Perth. Raso was concussed during the Matildas' 4-0 win over Iran a week ago, while Catley suffered the same injury during the 3-3 draw with South Korea on Sunday. Both players did light training away from the main group today as Australia chases a semi-final berth and qualification for the Women's World Cup. In the NRL, after a dramatic first-round win Over Manly, the Raiders will now travel to New Zealand to take on the Warriors. The Green Machine will have to do it without veteran prop Josh Papali'i, who's currently sidelined due to the league's concussion protocol. It'll be a welcome return for New Zealander Matt Tomoko, who missed the side's opening game with a foot injury. It was just the second game Tomoko has missed in 5 seasons. The Raiders will be looking to continue their recent dominance over the Warriors, having won their past 3 clashes. Canberra United are back in action on Sunday when they take on Melbourne City in the A-League women's competition in a top-of-the-table matchup. The league has been on hiatus for the past 3 weeks as the Asian Cup takes place here in Australia. It means the side will be without their top scorer, Michelle Heyman, who's currently with the Matildas in Perth ahead of that match against North Korea. A win could see United level with league leaders City, with only 3 regular rounds to go in the competition before the finals. 5 Australian-made pinball machines have been added to the National Film and Sound Archives collection. Among them are classic Australiana designs and the first ever Star Wars themed machine.
In the 60s and 70s, pinball parlours were going off. Popular, but expensive to import, a Newcastle-based jukebox manufacturer began building them locally, designed by David Hankin.
Hankin was making these machines with no intention for overseas distribution, so they could really harness like Australiana in the designs.
At the peak of production, the Newcastle company had 50 staff building 5 different designs, including the first ever Star Wars pinball machine.
We approached George Lucas and said, would he be interested in doing something like this, or allowing us to do something like this? And the answer, surprisingly, was yes.
The complicated electronic and mechanical designs of pinball machines meant that they were prone to failure, but it was the introduction of Space Invaders in 1980 that sent many of them to the tip.
The fact was, you couldn't give a pinball machine away once Space Invaders came out.
The National Film and Sound Archives snapping up all 5 working Hankin machines, tracked down by Canberra-based collectors Stephen and Cassandra Smith.
Hankin did it at a time where they were the sole producers in Australia, and that's remarkable, that really is.
The almost 50-year-old pinball machines will be on public display later this year, playable by kids, both big and small, for generations to come. Gianfranco Di Giovanni, ABC News.
Few memories coming back there. And as we creep further into autumn, it's likely that dewy mornings will become more common. And as Edward of O'Malley tells us, that means the migration of yabbies will gather pace. Edward saw this one on a footpath in his suburb, no doubt hoping it'll lead to a nearby pond around there somewhere. We had a glorious day in Canberra today, starting out at 12 degrees and climbing to 25 this afternoon. A cooler change lowered temperatures right across southern New South Wales. Cooma peaked at 21, Goulburn 24. Even the normally warm Riverina centres had highs in only the mid-20s, Albury with 24, roughly the same as at the coast. Moruya had a high of 23 today. Apart from Darwin, which remained quite wet, the major cities were mostly dry. Melbourne had less than a millimetre of drizzle and 19. 16 in Hobart. Sydney was clear and 27. A sticky 33 the high in Brisbane. Adelaide was cloudy and 23. By now we all know the rain that's being dumped by the major cloud bank over the top end. There's also a stream of cloud moving towards South Australia. That particular cloud mass is being squeezed onshore by a high pressure system out in the Southern Ocean. Solid rain returns to Brisbane tomorrow, perhaps up to 10 millimetres of it and 31 degrees. Other Queensland centres further north are also in for some rain. Sydney might be in for the lightest of showers, 23 expected there. A cloudy 20 in Melbourne, mostly sunny, and 25 in Adelaide. Friday's looking much like today in our region, slightly cloudy along the coast. Bateman's Bay is heading for 23, 21 for Bega, the same for Merimbula. Fairly clear for Goulburn, and Wagga's expected to get to 28. The day might start out cloudy in Canberra, then clearing with southeasterly winds and a high of 24. 4. Sunrise is just before 7. It sets at precisely this time tomorrow night. And at this stage, the Bureau's outlook for a wet week ahead is firming, but we do have a clear weekend before then. And that's all from our Canberra News team tonight. Don't go away. Sarah Ferguson's next with 7:30.